It's Monday, March 2nd. This is Scouting the League. Today, we dive back into our scouting trait series, talking tight ends. Saw some big-time performances at the Combine, but it is a position with some nuance as well. Going to be a fun conversation talking that one. Tomorrow, we must once again hit on all things Combine, both what I saw, what I heard, and what really matters coming out of Indy. Yes, it matters. No, probably not quite the way you think. Make sure you tune in for that one. Make sure we congratulate all the scouts, pro liaisons, schools, anyone that took home an award at Neil's Inside the League seminar this week. Well-deserved honor for all those that were able to take one of those Bart Awards home. The Saints took home that Best Draft Award. Congrats to them. They will have a chance to build on this class with another big one in 2026 as this draft process keeps going. And make sure you tune in this Wednesday as we talk with Jordan Reed of ESPN on all things 2026 draft, who he really liked at the Combine, what were surprises perhaps, what does his board look like as we get into the pro day time. And of course, we get to talk pro days. That's going to be Thursday this week. Again, it used to be one of my favorite times of year as an area scout, getting to go to pro days, getting time with these guys, getting to see them work out, put them through workouts. Again, really fun. So make sure you tune in to everything we have this week. Hit me with comments, thoughts, everything. And before we jump in, make sure you go subscribe wherever you are listening and watching. Hit those buttons. Make sure you're following me over on Twitter. I am Rodrik David at RightStepADV is where you can find me. Head over to my website, rsafootball.com, for any questions, my background, my story, everything going on in football. If you're a scout or aspiring scout, make sure you head over and look at thescoutingcommunity.com. Going to be some big time information coming for NFL scouts, so make sure you hit me on that one. But get signed up no matter which boat you were in, and make sure you get those Blue Maca insoles as well over at bluemaca.com. Use code scouting20. Let them know we sent you and get a little discount on that order. That is scouting20 over at bluemaca.com. Those insoles, not too late to get them and get them in those shoes for your pro day performance. That non-slip insole will improve your performance. So get them over at bluemaca.com. With all that done, let's get into our tight ends in our scouting traits series. Again, first thing you have to do when you start talking about tight ends is define, all right, what kind of guy am I looking for? Do I want the do-it-all? Do I want the guy that can play Y and F? We'll start there. What is a tight end Y? What is a tight end F? Well, again, let's start by defining it. Tight end Y is that blocking tight end. These guys are not typically drafted as highly as the Fs are, those pass catchers. We'll talk about them. But every team basically needs one, has one. There's only a few teams in the NFL that don't carry really somebody that's got that focus as a tight end Y. Again, your top guys probably going to be able to do both. They're going to have both Y and F ability. They're going to be able to play in line. They're going to be able to at least position blocks, hold their own. Again, you're talking at least a sufficient to good level blocker in line. We'll talk about that as we go, of course. And then again, that sufficient good level pass catcher as well. But again, when we start talking about tight end Ys, we're talking about blocking tight ends. On the flip side, the guys that really get paid that are more and more important to the offense, tight end F. Those are the receiving tight ends. Again, probably talking 230, 235 as opposed to those 250 plus tight end Ys. Again, those Fs are going to be fast. They're going to be separators in the pass game. They're going to be light at the point of attack. Now, hey, position block, cut block, play backside, not going to be consistently asked to one-on-one block a defensive end in the run game. But at a certain time, you're going to put your hand down in there. You're going to at least get in the way. You're going to do some of those things. That's going to be a tight end F. There is a third tight end we'll talk about a little bit today. Again, they end up being a little bit more Swiss Army guys that move around, that do a lot of different things, and that is the tight end H. Not every offense has a tight end H. In Atlanta, we had fullbacks. We did not have tight end H's. And now, again, for certain teams, that H better be able to play some fullback, better be able to play some tight end Y and some tight end F. They are versatile players who can probably do all three of these things at probably about a sufficient level. Again, you're never going to be a separation guy in the pass game. You're never going to be the road grader, run over guys at the point of attack. You're never going to be the consistent 10 to 15 snap fullback from the backfield, leading things up. But in a pinch, you can do all three. You are a valuable piece to this offense. You make, hey, is it 21? Is it 22? Is it 12? Personnel questions, they can make it difficult for defensive coordinators to decide, hey, what kind of offensive grouping. Again, if this guy's on the field this week, it was a question pro scouting. What are we defining this player as? Again, the Chiefs have used them. Tennessee has used them in the past with different teams. Is this player, this designation, are we going to call him a fullback, which means if he's on the field, we're talking 21 personnel, or are we calling him a tight end? Is this 12 personnel based on the way they use him? It is all part of the equation, all part of the calculation with these players. Not a ton of tight end H's that really get pushed up high in the draft. They're usually, like I said, the Swiss Armies, the do-it-alls, your good special teams players, the Brady Russells of the Super Bowl winning Seattle Seahawks, good players. Again, just not quite elite at the trait level. But again, all of that YFH, we'll talk about tight ends. So let's start with the tight ends Ys because they are important, maybe a dying breed to a certain extent. But again, you want them. You want the Lee Smith. You want this guy running through people's faces at the line of scrimmage. And again, for those blocking tight end Ys, you start thinking about them first from an offensive lineman standpoint. Again, initial quickness, which we talked about with the old line. Again, can I overtake defenders? Can I get off the ball and win at the point of attack? Hat and hand placement, all these things. Can I run block? Again, in the zone or gap scheme? Again, that's really going to dictate the size you want. Again, a 245 to 250 pound tight end Y, probably working in a zone scheme. If you're a heavy gap team, hey, let's get this 255 to 265 tight end Y. You see those jumbo tight ends, maybe those small offensive tackles, the swing tackles. Hey, we're just going to put our 300-pounder out there to play tight end Y, and we're going to live with him being, again, a marginal route runner because, again, we are all about the run game. But, again, the run blocking is going to matter. Pass blocking as well. Whether in protection, when we start working with that H tight end, putting that tight end Y in a hit position, can he scan? Can he play one-on-one versus an edge rusher? Can he fit inside versus stunts and games inside as that protection moves around? So the pass blocking matters. Again, what kind of position, what kind of hand use, what kind of feet does he have as a blocker? All those things matter. Now, when we go from only the tight end Y to the tight end F, again, you really think that pass blocker to the receiver, which means, again, guess what? Tight end F, all of a sudden you start thinking about it from a wide receiver standpoint. What kind of hands does this player have? And again, hands may move up and down a little bit for that team that's really looking at the tight end F position because, again, you're starting to think about, some of the ways that tight end is going to get open. Yeah, hands are going to be important. I would still argue if you're an F tight end, that's going to be your primary role. Catching the ball is going to be number one, but you have to start thinking about this player's releases because, again, he's going to line up on the hip. He's going to line up in a tight slot. He's going to be maybe in 12 personnel on the back hip of that tight end Y in line. He's going to be moving around from the backfield. Can he get releases? Can he get into routes? Does he have good athletic ability, good feel for the way those routes are going to run? Because you have good football intelligence with choice, with inside-outside routes, with leverage, with stemming those routes to get to the right spot. Again, being able to catch the ball. Again, tight end Y, you want to know what kind of yak they have. Are they good run after the catch? Are they versatile in the screen game? Can they do all these things? Again, what kind of routes does this guy run? Again, there's tight ends that, again, hey, this guy's going to be an underneath possession guy, quicker than fast, or they're those vertical guys to go get it. Of course, tight end Fs still have to block. With tight end Fs, you start thinking more about space blocking. Can this guy mirror and match corners, nickels, safeties, linebackers out in space? Again, I don't care as much for this tight end F if he can smash a defensive end down in line. Again, if I have to play against a 5 technique, no, I really want to know, can I track in space? Can I get to the hip? Am I making good decisions when everything starts moving, which is where those blocking the backs happen? Do I make good decisions out there in space? Again, that tight end F is all going to matter. So again, we got our tight end Y, we got our tight end F, the top guys, the Mark Andrews of the game, the George Kittles of the game. They are going to be at least good level Y and Fs. That is why they get drafted and paid at the top end of the game. That is why players that can do both at a good level are so valuable, because again, you can run 11, 12, 21, 22 personnel with the same guys on the field, get that same tight on the field, and you're not going to tip your hand as much, because then you stick Mark Andrews in line, you have to cover him in play action, vertical stuff, or again, all of a sudden he burns you real bad. You can't just sit back, put a bigger linebacker on that guy. So again, Y's, F's absolutely matter. So let's bring the H in. Like I said, not every offense uses an H tight end. You won't evaluate him. Maybe you'll stick him in a bucket, but again, they're not going to be a player for you just from the value standpoint. We want either tight end F and Y's, or we want fullbacks. But again, that tight end H is really going to embrace and be able to play in both those roles. Or probably start talking, hey, this guy's probably maybe a sufficient Y, he's a sufficient F, he's a sufficient fullback as well, tight end H. So let's stick that designation. But when you start talking about that tight end H, you better start thinking about that running back position as well. Again, bring another one into the group. And again, it starts with vision is usually one of those big things that these tight end H's, when you start projecting guys, when you think about guys working from the backfield, does this guy have the ability to run through an A or B gap, track a linebacker or safety, get to position, stock block, breakdown, bring the hips, and open that lane for the running back? So again, in a zone scheme, you start thinking about all the movement stuff from the backfield. Can we run a lateral zone, an outside zone, a stretch, a toss, something like that, be able to track? When we start thinking about the Baltimore Ravens, Pat Ricard, we think about gap scheme, downhill. I am going to meet you in the hole, and then I'm going to move you backwards to let Derrick Henry run through behind me. This is that old school fullback, head down, extra bar in the middle of my helmet type fullback. Again, not a ton of those guys, especially not a lot of guys that can do that and also play tight end Y and F. Again, Pat Ricard, he's a unique case. He does line up in all these different spots, but again, at the end of the day, he's a fullback that probably plays average tight end Y and F, to be honest, probably less than that. But again, he's a guy that can at least line up there. Defenses are going to treat him different. Again, you think about the guys that have played this position. Again, Jonnu Smith was one of the guys that did this really well early in his career, that could play from the backfield, create matchup problems. Again, Kyle Juszczyk for the 49ers is a guy that can do this. Again, his tight end Y, his tight end F, his fullback ability allows him to be a tight end H for a lot of offenses. Again, it was something in Atlanta when we played against Kyle. Hey, coach, QC coach, DC, hey, the week prior, 2 weeks prior, when a pro scout is putting their plan together, the question is like, hey, what are we treating Kyle as? Because that's going to affect the way we call our personnel. Is Kyle a fullback? Is he a tight end? Again, is it all going to be dependent upon where he lines up? Oh, guess what? They can line him up in multiple spots, moving pre-snap. Again, it creates a really fun problem for the offense, moving that guy around that the defense then has to answer. So again, you start talking about these tight ends, tight end H. Again, think about both what routes does he run, what can he do in the pass game. Think about him in line. What is he doing at the point of attack? Now, what is he doing from the backfield? Can he carry the ball? Can he lead block in a zone or a gap offense? Can he pass block as a traditional running back would? Can he line up to the hip of the quarterback in shotgun on third down? Bigger body, a little bit more anchored than that running back. Don't have to rely on the cut route. Can this guy protect the pocket from back deep, scan, find those blitzers, find those guys to run in there. Again, tight end Y, tight end F, tight end H, all really fun spots. But that's the first thing you've got to do when you start thinking about these tight ends is where am I going to put him? Is he a tight end Y only? Is he a tight end F only? Can this guy play tight end H? That's going to help you set where these guys are at. Elite tight end Fs. Again, Kenyon Sadiq, who can do everything. But again, you feel really comfortable with him in the pass game. You think about Kyle Pitts. He was a tight end F that the Falcons took at number 4. Again, some upside, some character that we liked his ability to be able to play in line. Big enough frame. Could he add the weight? Could he continue to grow into it? Again, has that happened? Again, coaching, front office, again, all things held equal. Again, Kyle still has a lot of upside in his future. We'll see where he ends at. But again, define your tight ends based on those 3 spots. That's really going to help you start to set where these guys go and find out exactly how high in the process they should go. So how high does Kenyon Sadiq go? Could he be a top 5 guy? Could he brush that number 4 spot that Kyle Pitts went? Is there another first-round tight end? Where is the value in this position? Who are the teams that are going to be taking that tight end H, tight end Y, tight end F? Some good players on day 3. Let me know. Head over to Twitter at RightStepADV. Who are some of those tight ends in any of these spots that you like? Let me know. Make sure you tune in tomorrow as we go over all things NFL Combine. Wednesday, of course, with Jordan Reed of ESPN to talk those 2026 draft prospects, all part of the draft cycle. Thursday, we talk pro days, everything you need to know as you start thinking about your guys, your teams, your scouts going to pro days. Make sure you tune in for that one. And make sure you're tuning in all the time. It is scouting season. It is pro day season, so make sure you keep scouting.